If you have more of this and you have less of this, then this video is definitely for you when it comes to generating motivated seller leads direct to seller, that is for off-market opportunities. Because in this video, that's exactly what we're going to discuss, methods of marketing that can generate you motivated sellers with little or no money out of your pocket. With that, I'm Christian Weatherspoon. This is Real Estate Investing Made Easy, and it's time to make it easy. We're landing at the final thing for our topic today, which is the free to low cost direct to seller marketing. So in terms of the ways that we've done it before and the best methods, we're going to cover that now.
Direct to seller, right? Where you, the investor, in some way, shape, or form are marketing directly to the sellers, right? So you're not going through an intermediary, and that could involve a number of different methods of marketing where they could be free methods of marketing, paid methods of marketing, but it's your company interacting directly with a seller who wants to sell their property.
Get out there, pound the pavement. Bicycle, skateboard, roller skate, whatever you got to do, and you can stay in shape doing it. Door knocking is a fantastic way. Just make sure you know why you're in that neighborhood, right? Getting to know your market is huge, and that's part of this.
Yeah.
Driving for dollars, that's also a good way to get to know your neighborhood, but a good way to get deals. Yeah. Now, I'm sure you guys have heard of Deal Machine. If you haven't already, that's a good one to use.
Or batch driven.
Batch driven is also another one to use. We have links to both of those in the description below. In addition, there's a third one that I actually prefer, and that is Property Radar. They have their own app that you can use to drive for dollars.
Yeah, or there's another alternative, and this one is a more creative strategy, but it's kind of leveraging relationships as well as direct to seller in a way where, you know, everybody's city, for the most part, unless you're in a more rural area, generally has Uber, Lyft, things like that, but you definitely have FedEx and UPS delivery drivers, pizza delivery drivers, right? These are people that are constantly driving through neighborhoods, driving to people's houses, picking people up from these different places and then dropping them off in different places. So they're driving by a ton of different properties. So think about this, going back to the whole idea of we all have the same amount of time, we need to figure out ways that we can multiply our time. You can enroll some of these drivers, right, and tell them like, hey, here's what we do. Any property that you see where the grass is overgrown or it looks vacant or it's super disheveled and it looks like it needs a lot of work, fire damage, mold, hoarding situation. Maybe they have an old broken down Chevy in the front yard, right? And they're using it as a fire pit, right? Whatever the situation is, right? You kind of give them a clear, precise idea of what it is that you're looking for. And then there's a few different ways you could do it. You could either have them just text you the address, or what I prefer to do, and the CRM that we use, we love for a whole host of reasons. But one of the things that's great is you can create a web form in it, and you can create multiple different web forms that'll be attached to different campaigns. So what we've done is we've created Driving for Dollar web forms that are connected to Driving for Dollar campaigns. And anytime we enroll one of these drivers, we basically create a campaign for their specific name, and so we know who it is that sent the lead. So this web form they can save on their browser, and just right from their phone, all they have to do, because really they're not going to have a lot of information, so all they have to do is put in the address, you know, the number, the street, you know, the city, the state, the zip code, and then put any specific notes in that one field, and then they submit it, and it'll automatically get populated into our CRM, which is Forefront CRM.
Yeah.
And it automatically goes into a status that's called need to skip trace. And every few days we take the leads that are in this status, we export that list into a spreadsheet file, and then we take that spreadsheet file and we upload it to Best Skip Tracer, where that we use for all of our skip tracing needs. We skip trace the number, and then we can do a few things. We can either text them, we can cold call them, we can even door knock them, or if we're using an agent, we can have the agent door knock them. So we can leverage those relationships. And the way we enroll those people is we just tell them like, hey, when you send these over, you know, it might take some time, right? This is a long game, but just do it every day that you're out, every single day that you're out, just send over these leads. And over time, time, you're going to develop a pipeline of these essentially driving for dollar leads. And if you end up closing on them, you pay them out $500 or $1,000 or whatever it is that you know, in your market is necessary, right? If your average wholesale fee is $5,000, well, maybe you just want to give them $500. That's 10%. That's reasonable. They'll be happy. But if you're in a market where your average wholesale fee is $40,000, maybe you want to give them $1,000 or $2,000, right? What is it that's going to wet their whistle and make them excited to do that for you, right? And, you know, maybe you even pay them out like a certain dollar amount for every time they send a lead over, right? If it's small enough and if you have the budget for it.
And if it's qualified.
Exactly. So there's a lot of different ways that you can leverage those people to help you build your business.
You know what my favorite marketing campaign was?
What's that?
Post-it notes.
Tell me more.
Post-it notes with just, hey, sorry I missed you, and your number. And this is the driving for dollars, door knocking combination type situation that you can also outsource to other people in other industries that are driving around all the time. And obviously they want to identify correctly a potential property, right? If it's vacant, nobody's going to respond, but there are tall tale signs of a property that might be in distress.
Tall tale signs or telltale signs?
So there are tall tale signs. When the grass is so tall, it tells you that there might be something going on when every other property in the neighborhood is in great shape. It doesn't
has a finely manicured lawn.
Yes, as opposed to the finely manicured lawns all over the place. And especially if it's, you know, at a time where, hey, there's a light on and there's a light off now, so we know somebody's there. Then we can put those Post-it notes or a Post-it note on there, and that's it. And then bail.
Yeah, you know, another really good way to identify like a vacant property, especially if there are cars in the driveway, is if you see like cobwebs developing between the street and the tire, or the driveway and the tire. You know, or you can tell that like, hey, there's dust all around the tires and it doesn't look like they've moved at all, right? There's different things that you can identify, you know, overgrown trees and all types of different things that'll kind of point that out. Another really good thing is, you know, anytime you see a buildup of those little pamphlets that get thrown out, you know, onto the people's driveways, you know, if you see 5 or 6 of them, you know, they typically only come around and throw those out like once a week to people's houses. So when there's 8, 9, 10 of them, chances are there's nobody there. It could be vacant, so you might want to skip trace that and track down the owner and call them. So there's a lot of ways to identify those, you know, these troubled properties.
Yeah, in the driving for dollars, the hitting the pavement, I really like calling all of these things just pound the pavement. Because whether it's you or whether it's somebody else, whether you're driving or walking, either way, you can directly knock on their door and have a conversation with them, leave anything that's a leave behind, right?
Absolutely.
Doesn't matter if it's a Post-it note. I like those because they're cheap and you don't really have to put anything other than, sorry I missed you, and then your number.
Yeah.
They're gonna call you.
Most likely, yep.
Out of curiosity, if anything.
Yeah, for sure.
But no, by the way, he said that cobwebs developing by the tires. I think that's because spiders are attracted to rubber, right? Is that it?
I don't know.
I've never seen that before. I've never seen it. I don't know.
I've seen it before. I used to do a lot of door knocking for a window and siding company years ago back in Philadelphia.
Would you still knock on their door?
Oh, 100%. I knock on everybody's door.
Right.
Even when it says no soliciting.
Right, because you're not selling anything.
No, even when I was selling something, you know, what I found is that, and don't be afraid of no soliciting signs. So just to be clear, right, in this scenario, you're not selling something, you're buying something. But even if you were selling something, I would still encourage you to knock on doors that have no soliciting signs. And here's why. One, oftentimes those signs were left over from a previous owner. They didn't even put it up and they don't even care. Some of my biggest sales in my sales history have come on the heels of knocking on a door with a no soliciting sign. And as long as you're confident and you're able to have fun with people and you've got a smile and you're a nice guy, you know, generally they're going to be okay. And a lot of times what happens is, you know, I'll knock on the door and say, hey, didn't you see the no soliciting sign? Like, oh, I'm sorry. I thought it said no smoking speaking in Spanish, and you get a quick chuckle, and usually that breaks the ice, and they're like, oh, I'm really sorry about that, like, I'll go away. I was just curious because I saw, your windows were, in bad shape, whether you had something set up to fix those. And, oftentimes they'd open up the conversation and they would talk to you, and, you'd end up getting an appointment and selling them something. But a lot of times what I've found is that people generally will put a no soliciting sign on a lot of times because they know that they're easily sold. And so that's like a defense mechanism, because it's going to stop 80 to 90% of the door knockers from knocking on their door. Now, there's one type of sign that I'll never knock on the door. And this is something for all you door knockers, you should absolutely respect this sign. This is the handwritten sign from the new mother who specifically says, baby sleeping. The last thing you want is Mama Bear flashing her claws at you because you just woke up her sleeping baby.
How do you know that?
And she's been freaking dealing with no sleep for the last week or more because her baby keeps her up every single night.
You speak
that
from
is
experience?
not. Oh yes, definitely speaking from experience. That is not something you want to deal with. So if you see that sign, just notate the address. Maybe come back at another time, or skip trace, get the number, call them, right, and tell them, hey, I was gonna stop by your house, but I noticed the sign. Tell them that, and they're going to respect the fact that you had respect for that sign, and you'll probably get an appointment there.
Nice. I thought you were going to say you won't door knock on a property that has this sign that has like this hand with a gun that says we don't call the police.
Oh no, I love those. I love those people. Yeah, I love those people because I'm a gun owner too, and I love to connect with other gun owners, and I can appreciate that. So, at the end of the day, if you know how to playfully banter, and you're quick-witted, and you can have fun and smile and not take things too personally, then you'll have fun door knocking. But if you're the sensitive type, and you're going to quickly get anxious and frustrated, door knocking might not be the best place for you to go, because there are some challenges that you run into in dealing with people on a day-to-day basis in those scenarios.
Yeah, and speaking of being in the comfort zone doing these things, another thing that you can do and should do repeatedly to get even more comfortable with it is another direct-to-seller method that we would recommend, and that is cold calling.
Yeah, and again, at the end of the day, right, like, we don't want to fit a square peg into a round hole. So if you're just not good at talking to sellers, and that that's the case, and you just have problems with it, you may want to partner with somebody that is better at that, right, and is more well-versed or more adaptable to be able to do those things. But yeah, cold calling is a great way to get a hold of people. Another method is texting, and when we're talking about low cost or no cost, we're talking about you as an individual texting or cold calling. We're not talking about using SMS blast or paying cold callers to do it for you. We're just talking about free low-cost methods that you could do that just really require your time and energy. Another one that's commonly looked at as a really expensive form of marketing is direct mail. And so we're not talking about paying for fully developed postcards or anything. We're talking about like maybe you and your wife handwriting some letters, saying like, hey, we're looking to purchase a property in the neighborhood. And while you're doing the door knocking campaign, you can use those as leave behinds. And a lot of times, people love the idea of being able to sell their home to a new family that wants to move into the neighborhood. So, just make it a nice letter talking about you and your family, and of course, we would never encourage you to lie. So if your goal is not to move into the property, I would not encourage you to write that in there that we're looking to move into this property.
But it's really cool if you have a family business where you and your wife or spouse or significant other are doing the business together. So you can say, me and my family are reaching out.
Exactly. We're looking to purchase another house in the area, or we're looking to purchase a home in the area, right? They can infer that you want to move into it, right? And that's totally fine if that's what they they think is going on, as long as you're not saying it. I think if we're going to be above board, just saying, hey, we're looking to purchase a house in the area, put more details about you and your family, and or whatever you want to put in there. And then when you get on the phone with them, when they call you and they ask, oh, you're looking to move into the neighborhood? No, not exactly. It's me and my wife. We run a business, and this is what we do. We buy homes, and we put a little love into them, we put a little care into them, and then we put them back on the market, and this is how we feed our family. And they'll respect your honesty and integrity when you do that.
They probably will. You get some that are just like, don't ever contact me again.
Yeah.
But either way, to all of the no's, whether it's that aggressive no or whether it's a no thank you, what do?
Follow up.
And also ask,
do you know anybody?
Is anyone else in your neighborhood? So you guys know your neighbors, right? This looks like a really nice community, so I'm sure you are friends with your neighbors, right?
Yep.
Any of them considering selling? Because we really love the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Or you love it so much you're never leaving.
Yeah, absolutely. Or if you get the really angry guy, what I find works really well is like, hey, sorry, man, I didn't want to bother you. I'm just curious. Are there any neighbors you don't like that you would like to see move out of the neighborhood? And then they'll usually that angry guy is going to have somebody he doesn't like, okay, cool. What's their house like? Because I'll go by their house and get them out and get you a new neighbor. How would you like a new neighbor?
Go bug my neighbor across the street. Go bug him.
Go bug Jim. His dog always poops on my lawn.
That'll stick in his craw. That's good. And also when you do, whether it is cold calling or door knocking or any of these marketing methods, direct to seller, have somebody respond in a negative way. The approach that I really like to take and that has worked a lot and doesn't drop the defenses of everybody, but it does often. And that is to say that, hey, especially in a foreclosure marketing campaign, okay? That is to say, hey, I've found that, a lot of people who are receiving these letters, it's a huge blessing for them, and they just, open to the conversation, and our goal isn't to purchase the property or anything like that unless it's a good fit for you. So we do want to make an offer, but if you don't want to sell and you're looking to either refinance or there's other, things that you haven't tried, then we want to help you because we are a real estate solutions company. So it's not just a purchase. I've told sellers on the phone who were really mad before, hey, I really don't want to buy your property. I just don't want to buy it, right? I really don't want to buy it unless you really want to sell it. It sounds like you don't want to sell it. You're not serious about selling. So that's okay. Have a great day, But before you go, hey, by the way, what neighbors do you want to get rid of and see move?
Absolutely. Yeah, totally. Yeah, and to your point, door knocking, especially foreclosure lists or pre-foreclosure lists, you hear different stories and you hear different approaches, and not knocking anybody's approach, but personally, I don't like the approach of leading with the foreclosure issue. Like, hey, I noticed you're in foreclosure. You got to realize these people, oftentimes, there's the 5 stages of grief when dealing with foreclosure, right? And unless they're in the the later stages where they're at the point where they're accepting the situation and that they need to solve the problem, more often than not, you're going to create more resistance than fluidity in the conversation, right? Yeah. And so, I think the best approach is just the standard approach, like, hey, have you ever considered selling your house? When they feel comfortable and they feel that it's appropriate to bring up that they're in foreclosure, they will. And if they don't, what I find to work the best and really kind of puts them at ease and allows you to kind of be on their side of the table instead of somebody on the opposite side of the table is saying, in the conversation when you think it's necessary to bring it up, is like, hey, I'm just curious, Jim, oftentimes the county records are incorrect or not updated properly, but would it come as a shock to you to know that your house is actually on a pre-foreclosure list? Is that a surprise? And you're doing that because you don't want to throw it in their face. Like, they know that they're in foreclosure or pre-foreclosure, right? And again, that information might be inaccurate, right? It might not have been updated. Yeah. Like, depending on when you got your list and when that list was updated, they could have literally just paid off their arrears literally yesterday. if there's somebody that works in a business where, the volume of money comes in different types of swings and it's not consistent, like they're a business owner, they may often go into pre-foreclosure and come out of pre-foreclosure because, deals close at certain periods of time,
right,
and, they need a little bit of time to catch up on that. So, I think it's always best to just go in with a standard, hey, have you considered selling your property, blah, blah, blah. And when it makes sense, it'll come up. And if it doesn't come up, then you can bring it up in a way that is just a little softer and a little bit more respectful of the tough situation that they're in.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I've been there, and also one key point to the pre-foreclosure stuff is that whether it's a letter, believe me, even whether it's a letter or you're cold calling, especially if you're door knocking, you don't know who is either reading it, who is opening, or who's answering the phone, or who is answering the door. They might not be the owner of the property. They might be a spouse or a kid or whoever. Adult kid, right? And not have any idea about this foreclosure. And when you start telling them, hey, I noticed you're in financial hardship, like I'm here to help, they will not respond very well.
Yeah. And, the other thing is oftentimes, like, who else is calling them about that pre-foreclosure? Right? The bank, right? Bill collectors. And think about this, right? When somebody is dealing with pre-foreclosure, it means that there's, it's kind of like if a Marine in battle has to use Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it means like 12 other things went wrong for them to get to that point. It means they got separated from their team. It means their gun jammed. They ran out of ammo. Their knife didn't work. Like all these other things happen to the point where now they have to hand-to-hand grapple with an enemy combatant on the ground, right? And that's a terrible situation because they don't know whether there's somebody else coming from around the corner that's going to shoot them in the face or whatever.
Oh my God.
I mean, it's terrible situations, right? So a lot of things had to go wrong. And so with pre-foreclosure, right, generally speaking, the mortgage is the last thing that they're going to stop paying, right? They'll stop paying their phone bill. They'll stop paying their credit cards. They'll stop paying their car payments. They'll stop paying all these other things. So for them to get to pre-foreclosure, 10 or 12 other things have already gone wrong.
And you're just at war with them while the bank is trying to shoot them in the face.
Yeah, exactly.
Is what you're saying.
Yes, the bank is coming, behind their back.
That's what you
So, yes, you really want to position yourself in a way where they feel like you're there for their best interests and not necessarily just coming as a vulture trying to like pick at their carcass, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
very vivid examples.
Yeah, hey,
analogies.
I like to paint a picture with words. So,
yes.
and for those of you watching, if you can get really good at painting a picture with your words, then that's going to help you a lot on seller calls because you can, really paint a picture of different scenarios and how you can help people using different types of transactions. And when you can do it effectively, they can see it more vividly and it makes sense and it applies to their situation a lot better.
Yeah, I love that. And he's addressing, for those who are watching, for those who decided to play this and close their eyes the entire time, I have a message for you guys. You can still get good by listening, just like on the phone, and then going over these as trainings, which we do have actually linked in the description below for each one of these types of marketing methods in greater detail. So as they come available, we will have door knocking and all of the different types of door knocking, specifically exposing how we do it in our own business, following that process, as well as cold calling and texting. And we are heavy on the texting for our done-for-you marketing clients. Hey, thanks for taking the time to watch this. I hope it was valuable for you. And look, if you learned something else that you can do with your time to generate a lot more of this, then once you have this, click on this next video to watch the top 10 paid methods of marketing that we recommend that's working for us and our done-for-you marketing clients. We'll see you on this video as we make that marketing easy.